That's what we're going to talk about in today's episode of Soapbox Wisdom. I'm Barbara Menino.
And I'm Christine Rothdeutsch.
And today we're going to contemplate, just as it's nearing the end of the week, is it casual end of the week, casual Friday every day when you work from home? Or are there more rules of sorts, attached to your attire? But before we even get into that discussion, we want to encourage you to like, comment, or share this episode and air your views on this particular topic. So, Christine, dress down Friday, casual Thursday, work from home. Is there a thread that runs through all of them?
Well, Barbara, as we were preparing for this, I was thinking how, when in the days when we actually went to work, I mean, yes, you had to dress, acceptable, and it mattered. It really did matter. But then COVID hit, and everybody's working from home, and what happened to us? I'm like, what, now all of a sudden, well, I shouldn't say all of a sudden. Okay. It's not all of a sudden, but people think it doesn't matter when you have to ask yourself, one, how do you feel if you're not professionally dressed? Okay. And there's so many different aspects to think about here. It's like, how do you feel? But then also, if you are meeting with people virtually, how are you presenting yourself to people? I know there's that old one. It's like, well, I'm professional on the top and I'm comfortable on the bottom, with sweatpants or whatever. But for me, mindset, how I feel about myself does come into play, and I think it depends on what I have to do that day. We were talking also about, the having something nice and soft against your skin, and it's just, comfortable. And I can see that, if you've got a creative day, you say, all right, I'm not going to meet with anybody, I'm going to be super comfortable. It's again, there's a lot of different things to be thinking about here. But I think one of the ones that people discount also is what people think of you if you are on virtual meetings, just say. And I know you're not supposed to judge people. Well, that's a little hard to ask, that nobody's going to judge you, but just saying.
So I think that's really interesting what you said, that there are two distinct sides of this. It's one, how you're showing up to other people, because now there are all these virtual meetings. And the other piece is what makes you feel good yourself. Mea culpa, as a writer, and I'm on deadline a lot. I've done a few deadlines, completed a few deadlines in PJs. As a matter of fact, I had a favorite pair of soft, light, casual PJs, and they kind of got destroyed in the washing machine and after all the years of wear. And do you know, I cannot wear them because they're ripped, but I can't let them go. They're a talisman in my drawer. So it is important how you feel so that you can produce well. But there is a definite distinction between feeling good to produce when you're alone versus showing up for other people. I think there's a certain level of respect. It's not just what the other person thinks about you, but there's a certain level of respect to show up nicely groomed. You don't have to be formal, but nice, professional, hair combed and clean, face washed, no sleep in your eyes, looking alert and suggesting and really putting yourself, putting effort, putting energy into the meeting.
Yeah, I think we've all seen this on Zoom, people showing up and thinking it's okay to not be your best. Well, we're just on Zoom anyway, or maybe it's a team meeting, not so much formal thing. It's and again, there's different reasons that you would be meeting virtually, but honestly, I don't know. I feel that in any situation, there should be some level of wanting to show up looking well, and again, it's all in what you want to, what do you say, portray to the people who see you. Um, and but I think you say, "Oh, it doesn't matter what they're seeing in you." I think there's a little psychology in yourself, though, that says, "Oh, I'm not dressed the best I can be, therefore I can kinda, like, sit back and not participate in the same manner either." I don't know. Um
Chew gum.
Oh gosh, no. Or
You could
eat.
chew
Oh my gosh.
gum.
Or
Yeah.
eat on
I
oh my gosh, I
I
hate
hate to eat on camera. If they have lunch meetings and things, I'm always kind of like that. It's actually funny. I read when we thought we might talk about this, I read somewhere that it suggested that you always wear shoes because it makes you feel more professional. And when I thought about that, that made a heck of a lot of sense. I also read, and I don't see this to be the case, but I also read you should not wear t shirts, even if they're nice t shirts that have words on them,
Mm.
because they're distracting and people want to get close to the Zoom and read what they say. Sometimes they
Oh,
appear backwards, which makes it even more difficult. Um, but those are two things I hadn't necessarily thought about, uh, but they make sense. And once again, this how your audience feels if you're going public in some way, how you feel in the in the professionalism you bring to the table, and
mhm.
also secondarily how you feel if you're hunkered down in a cone of silence at home, doing a report, writing an article, uh, filling out a spreadsheet.
Mhm.
What do you
Yeah.
think if you just have a phone call? How do you feel you should be dressed for that?
Well,
That's
that's interesting that you
a
bring.
whole other level.
Yes, because, I don't know if you've heard from any of the coaches you've had as far as making a phone call, especially to, like, a prospect, you shouldn't even sit down for the phone call, that you should be standing to make the phone call. So if you should be standing to make the phone call, I would think that how you're dressed would matter also. I
No
but I wanna
flannel
go back to what
pajamas on that one.
I wanna go back to what you said about the shoes, because, yeah, I took my shoes off before we started this. It's like, I don't have my shoes on at the moment. Just saying.
Well, do you know, especially during Zoom, I started this. I would never come to a Zoom without spritzing my Joe Malone perfume. It was, as a matter of fact, I kept it on my desk. And you may think that that's absurd because, of course, no one could get the fragrance. But I
Mhm,
loved the fragrance and it made me feel me.
mhm,
And at the end
mhm.
of the day, that has to do with your attitude. It has to do with confidence. It has to do with commitment and how you show up and what you bring to the table. So maybe keeping fragrance on your desk is an important piece to all this.
Yes. Well, and that's, sometimes I'll light a candle that I have
Yep.
here in my office, or I have some essential oils and take a spritz. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And we don't think much about these, how it really is affecting us and our ability to work. But I challenge our audience to really stop and think. Ask yourself, how well are you working, if you're not thinking about these things? How productive are you being? Are you able to be super creative? And again, like any of these things, some people can be super comfortable to be creative and do what they have to do, and then other people want to be on the professional side. And I've done this myself, especially in summertime. It's like I'm tired of wearing pants and shorts and everything. It's like I put a dress on, it just raises, my vibration for myself. And here's another thing too. So a lot of talk about doing video. If you do not prepare yourself in the morning to be professional, and if you don't lay out your day and you kind of go along the way, what happens when you come in to a point in your day? I'm like, boy, oh, I should do some videos. Oh, I got to change my clothes. Oh, got to fix my hair now. Oh, geez. Oh, I'm not going to do the video. But if you get dressed first thing in the morning to do whatever comes up, you're going to get these other things done, I think.
It's funny that you mentioned morning because there's a lot written about morning routines. I know you read maybe it was the 5 a.m. club. I've been in my book group a few years ago. We read morning something or other. And the book that we read suggested that you get up, you could brush your teeth, but right away you got into either a meditation or journaling or whatever to get the wheels turning. And the early morning is a really lovely time because there's such quiet. But I find that I get confused sometimes with those routines because if I get up first and I meditate, I don't always do that, but if I do meditate, if I do read, if I do journal something quiet, if I come to my desk to work on something and I get entrenched, then to your point, I have a difficult time figuring out when do I jump into the shower, blow dry my hair, put on makeup, and dress nicely. So your point about if you can do this grooming early in the morning, you're ready for action no matter what the day brings.
Mhm.
You have a spontaneous meeting, a friend calls you and says, let's go to lunch, and you can fit that into the middle of your day for an hour. But if you've got to worry then about getting out of the pajamas at noontime to take a shower and go, you're always delayed. So there's some very tactical issues
Mhm.
attached to this. And of
Right.
course, my husband always says, you got to learn to get dressed more quickly. I surprise him sometimes because I can be pretty fast when I want to be.
But I think if we look at our mornings as if we had to get out the door by a certain time to go to work. So
Yep.
yes, you wake up early, like at 5 a.m. And maybe one of the books you were reading was it The Miracle Morning?
Miracle Morning. Yes,
Yeah.
the name escaped
Yeah,
me.
that's a
Thank
great
you.
one also, yes.
Yeah.
Wake up early and do those things, but have it set that by a certain time, you are going to get dressed. But, we that's the problem with working from home that we say, "Oh, I'm just gonna sit down and work
That'll
on
do
this.
it.
I have an idea. Let me get started on it." And like you say, yeah, before you know, I was like, "Oh, geez, I didn't get dressed yet."
And before you know it, it's 11 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't waste the day, but now your prep time for getting ready for the day, apparel wise anyway, or grooming wise, is later and it's interruptive.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
so it's important to think about all that stuff. That's funny. Geez, I didn't get dressed yet. Yes, I've been there. That's why I really do prefer to get up and shower and get all that done. That's one thing I like about early morning meetings like BNI.
Mm.
You have to be out the door so early and you're all dressed. So when you come back, it's 9 o'clock, 9:30, and you are ready for bear. You can
Mhm.
just do anything at that point. Take a Zoom, start working on a project, whatever.
Mhm.
You are at the ready and you've already accomplished a lot in your day.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and like I said, there's several different ways to look at this topic. It's, from our viewpoint of how do we feel, in how we work and present ourselves on camera, but it's also from the flip side of if you have to be on camera at a virtual meeting of any kind, what how are people perceiving you? Because they talk about you having that great lighting, you have a great backdrop. Well, if you're going to worry about that stuff, aren't you going to worry about how you look? Just you know.
And to that point, a lot of times you'll go to big Zooms where there are a lot of people and a percentage of people are off camera.
Mm,
One may assume they're either doing something else, they're preoccupied, or maybe they are still in their pajamas. Who knows? And that you'll hear the facilitator always say, get on camera. But it makes sense because if you're off camera, you're showing a level of detachment, you're showing perhaps a lack of interest or at least a question about your level of interest. And in
mhm,
some respects, you could say you're showing an impoliteness or a
mhm.
lack of respect to the people who are on camera, who are attending also. What do you think about being on camera?
Oh, I'm a firm believer of being on camera. It's rare. The only time I would be off camera, and I just had this happen the other day. I was on a training call with my coach, and I had to turn the camera off because it said my connection wasn't stable. And actually, then I did get thrown off. But I do know that here we are. We want to be seen. Well, it's silly to be on any virtual call and not being seen. I think it's again, it sets something up in our mind, that's gonna hold us back. But I wanted to bring up too, Barbara, we're talking about when you work from home and how you dress at home, but what's your experience, when you do go out to meetings with other business owners, and any networking events or anything like that? Are you seeing any difference in how people are presenting themselves out in public? I has that changed over the years? And I know it depends on what field, what industry somebody is in, absolutely. Um, I don't know, sometimes I think some of the people that I encounter around aren't necessarily, I'm not saying being super professional, not at all. Um, but I think, we do have to, again, we're all being perceived in some way. We have to ask
It's a
ourselves,
fact. That's
if
reality.
yeah, yeah. But what do you
Mhm.
find?
So that's a really very interesting question. And I found that when things initially, after the worst of COVID, went hybrid, or even when people moved from Zoom to in person meetings, I felt there was a carryover of casualness.
Mm,
Perhaps I might go as so far as to say inappropriate casualness.
mm,
But I am finding this year more than ever that the enrollments, the memberships in various organizations to which I belong, to networking meetings that I attend, I find more people are coming out. And with that, I, I see a bit of a change in the way people are dressing. And
mhm,
they are dressing more office appropriate.
mm,
So I think there's been kind of a pendulum on that.
mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't see as many hats. I don't see as many guys wearing hats in meetings, which is an interesting too. Should be allowed to wear a hat at a Zoom meeting. My
Mm,
personal opinion is I think it's just a little too dressed down and casual. but people do it, and some people
Mhm.
who I greatly respect do it. Um,
Mhm.
what do you think about hats?
Well, I know somebody who does it so that he's identified by the hat he wears.
Yes, I know someone who
So
does
when they
that too.
see, him, oh, that's, so and so. And some people do that. I know a woman I know also, she wears a lot of hats and it's her thing. The baseball hats, I can never get you. Baseball hats are just no, they're just wrong. I'm sorry. Just it's like not in business, not on Zoom. Yeah.
Especially the backwards
Uh, well, I don't know if
ones.
I've seen anything
I'm
that
just trying to
bad.
think whether I have. I
I
may
don't
have.
know. I
I
don't know.
they don't really stick, but I agree.
Yeah.
Baseball hats. But you are right. Hats can be part of one's
Yeah.
branded look.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little
Um,
rimmed hat or something like that.
mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
It's
So,
kind of an interesting topic.
yeah.
During COVID, we got a little lulled and
Mhm.
maybe a little spoiled to make up for the fact that we were all sequestered. Maybe we dropped some of the decorum.
Yeah. Well, and be even before that, so I got a really quick story here about what you wear. Well, it has more to do with children. Years ago, when my kids were in middle school and they were in the orchestra, and the music director is telling them, how to prepare for the Christmas concert, and to wear what you wear to church. And when I heard him say that, I'm like, oh gosh, no, no, you have no idea what kids wear to church anymore. It's not what you would expect. It's like,
It has
no.
changed.
Um,
That is funny. Well, I remember being a kid growing up, and when we went to church on Sunday, we would dress up. I remember taking trips, going to the airport, being on airplanes, and we would dress up.
mhm,
That's long gone.
yeah.
So that's why you took issue with wear what you would wear to church, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because who knows?
Mhm. Well, it's the same thing. You go to a nice restaurant and everybody's wearing jeans. Like, I know this conversation is going beyond, business and everything, but really, when you think about how we dress and everything, there used to be certain situations where you knew you dress up, and I don't know where that is anymore. I
Yeah,
don't know
the
where
dress
that
up
is.
days I think
Yeah.
are long gone. But I would believe that a key is whether you work hybrid or you
Mhm.
work from home full time, is having articles of clothing in your wardrobe that make you feel comfortable. So you show up with commitment and
Mhm.
confidence, but make the person on the other end of the screen, when you do have to go online, feel respected and 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 feel that there is a level of professionalism in the
Mhm.
meeting. Sometimes that even makes the brain work better.
Yeah.
You're a
Yeah.
productivity person, but that's one thing. You said something earlier on, just to pick up on that. Um, if you don't feel right, if maybe you feel that you're not as dressed or whatever as you should be, can you be productive? Or is there this sort of nagging feeling that you're squirming around, that you don't quite feel right? So
Mhm.
that's very interesting.
Yeah. Yes, 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 exactly, and I mean, well, that's kind of where I think we can finish up this
Yep.
conversation, Barbara, is that, I think a message to the audience is that, if everything is going great in your life, hey, keep doing what you're doing. It's like, but if not, if business isn't where it should be, if you are spending a lot of time on Zoom calls, maybe take a look at, it's just another thing for us to address, get that? Um, in our business, there's so many aspects of running a business that you have to take a look at. But I just invite the audience to maybe, take a look at that one and see how it's working for you. So
When you go shopping, think for clothing, think about that. So you have things kind of at the ready
Hmm.
that you can grab quickly, but they're ironed, they're clean, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and you're prepared.
So I invite our audience to please like and share this episode. Give us some comments. Let us know what your thoughts are on this topic, and stay tuned for the next episode of Soapbox Wisdom. Soapbox Wisdom is hosted by brand messaging and storytelling consultant Barbara Menino and business and mindset coach Christine Rothdeutsch. You can find them online at barbaramenino.com and christinerothdeutsch.com.